Mention bakery and my heart starts beating a little faster. I have always loved bakeries. I love traveling and checking out local bakeries, just smelling the smells, looking at the sweets and the breads. Today we're making a bakery style muffin that's going to be loaded with chunks of chocolate covered with a butter crumbly streusel, and I cannot wait to get started. So we have some ingredients to prep. We want a few things at room temperature before we get started. You want your butter, eggs, milk, and sour cream, nice room temperature. The ingredients and the measurements are in the description below, so go ahead and print out that recipe and then you can follow along with the video. We want to melt a half cup of salted butter, that's 113 grams. We need 2 large eggs. We need a 1/3 cup of sour cream, that's 85 grams, and then 1 cup of whole milk, and that's 250 milliliters. So just get that ready and then we'll put that aside. Chocolate is the star of this show, and I have chosen some higher quality chocolate. This is not the place to skimp. We want to make sure that we pay attention to the cacao content. This is at 56%. That is the purest form of chocolate. So the higher the percentage, the finer the quality of chocolate is. So we're going to chop this up. I'm just going to go one direction and then I'll cross over and go the other way. And I'm just going to kind of go crosswise here a little bit. Now I want to show you what the texture looks like. We have all different sizes here. Some are larger, some are smaller, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to put that in a bowl and we'll chop our other bar. Once you chop your chocolate, you're going to have these fine little pieces, and I don't necessarily want those mixed all through the batter. I'm saving this. These are nice little chocolate shavings, and I'm going to use those as a garnish on the muffins once they're all done. So I'm just going to put this in a smaller bowl and I'll show you what to do with those in a minute. We have our bowl of chocolate here. Right now I'm just putting this aside, and also the little shavings. These will be for our final finishing step. If you choose to use chocolate chips, you certainly can. Use about 1 1/4 cups, which is about 255 grams. Once you get them ready, just set them aside. And we're going to make our streusel. Streusel happens to be my favorite part of the muffin. Chocolate is a close second, but truth be told, icing is my favorite on a cake, and the streusel on top of a muffin, it's my favorite. So there's a lot of extra streusel here, and you're going to love it. 1 cup of flour. That's 125 grams. And then we have a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. That's 50 grams. A 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and this is packed, 55 grams. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which is 1.5 grams. We're going to stir this with a fork. You can whisk it if you want. Mainly we're doing this because brown sugar always is notorious for having a bunch of lumps in it. And sometimes they're really hard solids, so I'm just trying to break that up. We're adding 6 tablespoons of really, really, really soft butter. Let me just show you. This is so soft. I put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds. I didn't want it melted, but I want it super, super soft. So just put that in there. That's 84 grams of butter. You are going to love this streusel. It is absolutely wonderful. Basically what we've done here is incorporated all of the dry into the butter, And we've also eliminated any really large chunks of butter. We wouldn't want that melting down on top of the muffin while it's baking. So this is a nice consistency. I'm going to put this aside and we will start making our muffins. We're going to put our dry ingredients together. I'm going to grab a whisk and some flour. We need 3 cups of flour. That's 375 grams. Now we're going to do 1 tablespoon of baking powder. We have 2 leavening agents in these muffins. That is 13 grams. A half of a teaspoon of baking soda. That's 3 grams. And then 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. That is 1.5 grams. We're going to whisk that together. The leavening agents, the baking powder is double acting, so it's going to react to liquid and then it'll react again in the oven when it's exposed to heat. So that's going to give us a nice rise. And then the baking soda is going to react to the sour cream we're putting in. So we have lots of rise that's going to happen. I have everything here for the wet ingredients and we're just going to work through this together. The first thing you need is melted butter. This is 113 grams. The key is you want this melted but not really hot. So if it gets really hot, let it come to just room temperature. We're adding sugar into it and we want the sugar to stay intact. We want the sugar to melt in the oven, not in the butter here. That would affect the texture of the bake. So add your melted butter in. Then we're adding 1 cup of sugar in, which is 200 grams. We're going to give that a good whisk. I would say whisk it for 2 to 3 minutes. I mixed this for about 3 minutes. That was my workout for the day. The sugar is still very much intact. I can feel it in there. I can hear it. It's still nice and grainy. The sugar will then do its magic by melting in the oven. Next, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. That's 7.5 milliliters. And we're going to add a 1/3 cup of oil. You want unflavored oil, like vegetable oil. I'm using canola. It does have like nicer health benefits. Not that this is a health food. However, we'll take any advantage we can get, right? That's 79 milliliters. Give that a mix. Now we're going to add 2 large eggs in. Mix those until they are combined and you don't see any of that dark yellow anymore. Now we're going to add 1/3 cup of sour cream, or 85 grams. Whisk that in until it's nice and smooth. You see how smooth this mixture is? This is because we're using all room temperature ingredients. If you end up rushing the process and you add in cold eggs or cold sour cream, any of those dairy products, this will start to curdle or separate. We're trying to get this just nice and smooth, and this is actually looking just beautiful. Now we're going to add our last ingredient, which is our cup of whole milk. I use whole milk for the extra fat, and it just makes the bake nicer and more tender. That is 250 milliliters. Mix that until it's smooth, and then we will combine our wet and our dry ingredients. Now we add the wet into the dry, and we're just gonna, I'm making just a little well here in the center as I splash flour all over. Give this one last whisk, and in it goes. I'm going to stir this by the folding method, which is just kind of down to the bottom, up and over. You want to stir gently. We're not whisking this vigorously. We don't want to activate gluten. Gluten creates structure, and we want nice, moist, tender muffins. The mixture is almost combined. There are still some little bits of flour in here. We don't want to over mix this. So we're going to stir the chocolate in next. Just dump that right on top here. This is so yummy. And now we can continue folding. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can, but thorough. You want to make sure that you do have all of the dry particles mixed in. Nobody wants to bite into a dry lump of flour, or worse yet, baking soda or baking powder. That's very yucky. So just make sure you have it very thoroughly incorporated. We're going to turn the oven on to 425. And while the oven is preheating, we're going to cover this with a cloth, and we're going to let it rest for no more than 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll tell you why in 1 second. I'm covering this up, and I'm turning the oven on to 425. So the 5 to 10 minute rest that we're giving the batter allows the flour to fully hydrate, the gluten to relax, and overall that gives better texture and rise for our bakery style muffins. While this is resting, we're going to go ahead and prepare our pans. I have 2 different pans here in front of me, and I have 2 different baking cups. I happen to love these tulip style, and to me, if I were going into a bake shop, this is what I'm thinking I would love to see. So I'm making some in these, and I'm going to make some in the standard pans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I will make 6 of the regular kind. These you do every other one, and if you're greasing and flouring your pan, just do the same thing. Grease every other one. This gives them room to bloom and not bump into each other or touch each other as they're baking. So you just want to do that. And these, it doesn't matter. These are super nice because I can put streusel, anything I want. The muffin just rises up in here and everything stays inside. So we're going to do some of both. The batter has rested about 8 minutes. So we're going to fill our cups. Normally for a standard muffin, the directions would be to fill it 2/3 of the way full, and then your muffin comes out like that. The key to getting this bakery style muffin is to put it in at a really hot temperature, which allows it to get a really good rise and it'll get that nice dome. So we're going to fill these to the top. So I'm using a cookie scoop. If you don't have a cookie scoop, you'll just have to use spoons, tablespoons, whatever it takes. You want to fill those pretty close to the top. All right, so those are pretty close to the top, and that's about where I'm going to leave that. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. 2 scoops. So this is about how full I filled them. Now we're going to add the streusel. It's time to bake them. We're putting these in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 Celsius. They'll be in there for 5 minutes. You want to set the timer. That shot of heat is going to allow them to just like set the dome here, like get that coveted dome in a bakery style muffin. It'll allow the center to rise. Then without opening the oven or anything, then at the 5-minute mark, you want to turn the heat down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius, and then bake them for another 20 to 25 minutes. Let's get them in the oven. It's been 5 minutes. I'm going to reduce the heat to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. I'm setting the timer for 20 minutes and then I will check them. I'm going to have a look. It's been 15 minutes and I just want to see how they're doing. I got into chocolate, but I still think, let me see here. Yeah, that is coming out clean. Those are done. So I'm going to remove this pan and I will circle back and check the other ones. Gosh, they're gorgeous. Yay! So pretty. Now they need to cool about 15 minutes before we even touch them. All right. I gave these a couple extra minutes. They are done. So these were in about 17 minutes. You just kind of need to know your oven. They are gorgeous. No other words. Perfect. Just let them cool for a little while. These turned out so pretty. They've been cooling about 5 minutes and they need to cool about 10 more minutes in the pans, and then we'll remove them and let them completely cool. In the meantime, I'm going to sprinkle some of our little extra bits of chocolate that we had left on top. The joys of working with chocolate, it does melt in your hands. Look how pretty they are. I couldn't be happier. And we made the most beautiful bakery style chocolate chunk streusel muffins. Yay. They have that beautiful dome. They rose up so nicely. The streusel is golden brown. They're gorgeous. And these, in these little tulip papers, they're just beauties. They're still a tiny bit warm, which is a perfect time to give one a taste. Peel this back, and I'm going to actually just show you what these look like. They're softer. They just have, they're just beautiful. I couldn't be happier with them. So I'm going to cut one open. I'm actually going to move this so that you can see. Wow, they're so pretty. Look at, they're so soft and so tender. And there's a ton of gooey chocolate in there. I'm trying a bite. Yum. Tastes like a warm chocolate chip cookie. They are to die for. You've got to try these. They're so, so yummy. So look, this beautiful glob of chocolate, they're filled with that. If you love chocolate, check out my chocolate cream pie, and I will see you in the next video.